Hello, hello! Welcome to ClubChrisette. I'm your host, Chrisette, and today we are jumping back into Cursed Sight. So, when we last left off, Sasa was able to convince Mion to leave the temple for a little bit, but they were caught by guards or by someone, and this upset King Loke, and as well as Guy, because Sasa received a scolding, so he basically at this point perceives King Loke as like, the Tin Man, essentially, someone with no heart. And Sasa was telling us to be more gentle with him, as well as Mion, because they are complex. People are complex, and that's very true. But without further ado, we are going to jump back into Cursed Sight. I asked for 3 apples, not 2. Mion shook her head. Is your head empty? Mion usually spoke to me with zero emotion, but tonight she graced me with an ounce of anger in her tone. Was Sasa in the room? Maybe Mion wanted to impress her with the perfect ritual. I balled my hands into fists. If Mion was a boy, I would have punched her already, or him, or whatever. Sasa darted her eyes between Mion and I, wearing a pained expression like she had just swallowed sour candy. Enough was enough, yet Mion pressed on. These are sacred fruits gifted to the goddesses. My ritual will be ruined if they become angered. I'm the one who's become angered, those words wormed out of my gritted teeth. Sasa stroked my back, but I eased her hand away. You think you're so special just because you have some powers. This is why everyone calls you a monster. Mion threw one of the sacred apples at my face. I narrowly evaded the fruit, which splattered against the wall. Mion hurled a banana at me next. This time, the fruit smacked me square on the forehead. If I hurt Mion, Loke would have my head, but my rage had blocked out that fear. I picked up a pear and prepared to show Mion how to really throw something. Stop it at once, both of you, Sasa said. Mion and I froze stiff. Sasa pierced into my heart with her gaze. Put that pear down! Sasa had never put on any scary faces. While her smile disappeared, that was frightening enough. Her stern tone reminded me of an adult, while Mion and I were just children. I lowered the pear as told. Mion bit her lip and lowered her chin. Sasa's mood shift must have startled her as well. Compared to facing Loke, my fight with Mion should have been a trivial matter. Why Sasa would overreact this way left me baffled. Guy. With that single word from Sasa, I straightened my back and listened. Mion's a girl, not a monster. A man should handle these things more calmly. My only goal in this temple was to impress Sasa, yet now I know I had done the exact opposite. I closed my eyes for a moment to fight back the surging tears. Sasa faced Mion next. If you want to be treated nicely, you must be nice to others first. Have you even bothered to address Guy by his name? Sorry, Sasa, Mion murmured. Her shaking voice told me she must have been holding back tears as well. Seeing her this way made me forgive all of her crimes. This is why girls really annoyed me sometimes. Sasa grabbed my wrist and forced me to hold hands with Mion. That marked the first time I had ever had physical contact with her. I never noticed that her hand was almost small enough to fit in my palm. The realization made her seem so much less terrifying. Mion's skin gave off such warmth, too. No monster, tool, or treasure could possibly do the same. These flooding thoughts made my ears turn red. Sasa held Mion's hand, then did the same with mine. The 3 of us now sat with fingers interlocked, forming a triangle around the room. Sasa closed her eyes and began to speak. Time passes faster than you might think, so please, cherish every moment you spend with one another. Mion and I managed small nods. After pulling us both into her embrace, Sasa's usual smile returned. My shoulders slumped as the tension eased away at last. I should head back. It's getting quite late, Sasa said. As always, I rose to escort her out. The walks we shared might be brief, but I look forward to them more than any activity in this temple. As Sasa stepped out of the door, Mion whispered, "Sorry, Sasa. Please come back again, okay?" Sasa walked back in to pull Mion's cheeks and lift them into a smile. She and I then left the room for good. As Sasa and I strolled along the courtyard, my brain scrambled for words that would break the silence. You never fail to amaze me. Sasa glanced over her shoulder to give me a wink. Have you fallen for me? No, I retorted, and Sasa burst out into laughter. My stuttering gave away the truth. A grown-up like Sasa must have already memorized every trick in my children's book. Sasa stopped chuckling and spoke. Too bad for us both. I'm married with children. She turned her head away from me. A widow, to be exact. Ah! I stopped on my tracks as if the air before me had formed into a wall. Sasa spent time with a brat like Mion, and then went home and looked after her children all alone. I doubted I would never possess that strength, no matter how old I got. Still, I must have earned enough of Sasa's trust for her to tell me about herself. I resisted the urge to smile over that. For our potential romance, it stung that my chances just dropped from 0% to -100. Sasa leapt behind me and pushed my back to spur me forward. This is why you and Mion need to pair up already. We arrived at the temple entrance, saved not by the bell, but rather by the gates. Good night, Sasa. The next day, I stepped out of the temple for my grocery duties, the one chore I look forward to every month. Each time I came out, I considered running for good and joining those homeless children stealing on the streets. Doing so, however, would mean no more of Sasa's hugs and face pinches, and, well, okay. I also might miss those 1 in a million cases when Mion did something cute. As I strolled along Melody Way, I noticed those lanterns that lined the streets. These lanterns came in all colors and patterns. One of them featured a bikini-wearing girl who looked to be like Sasa. I stared for a little too long and almost crashed into a lamppost. After returning to the temple, I asked the servant what those lanterns were about.
Oh, that's the Lantern Festival. It's on tomorrow night, I think, the servant said. Not that it has anything to do with us.
Yeah, he was certainly right about that. Later that day, I visited Mion's room to wash the windows. When I walked in, Mion turned to see who it was, but our eyes met. Once our eyes met, she turned her head right back. Neither of us had spoken a word to each other since our fight. Oh wait, Mion has never spoken to me unless she needed to tell me off anyway. Call me crazy, but I would rather be reprimanded than suffocated in silence. Despite what Sasa had said, I refused to be the first to speak. It was I who took the banana to the head. I had no reason to apologize. As I began to wipe the windows with my towel, Mion put her hands onto the railing and stared at the garden. She probably just wanted to avoid me, but one of the other possibilities crossed my mind. Could it be that she knew about the Lantern Festival and wanted to go? Forget the festival. To Mion, going outside in a thunderstorm during a bandit raid would still be a dream come true. Just how long had she been locked inside this temple anyway? I wanted to ask her, then remembered she and I were at war. Though I kept complaining about being useless so far, I had done nothing to change the situation. Sasa did say Loke once had a kind heart, so maybe I could try a little something. Oh, Guy, you little fool. The next morning, inside the throne room, I had dropped onto my hands and knees before Loke. Please let Mion attend the Lantern Festival. I swear to take all responsibility. That's really brave, actually. Holy crap. The moment I said those words, I wish I could chant them all back down my throat like a jar of cookies. Go on. Tell the king it was opposite day. Loke exhaled from behind the curtain. That single sound almost knocked my heart up into my brain, causing more words spilling out. Mjoln seems tired lately, so it might affect her rituals, and I figure some time off would be good for her. Loke remained silent for a long time. I must have left my mind in bed, because even I had no idea what I just said. Maybe I should repeat myself, but maybe that would seem insulting to the king. Never should I have come here, Guy.
If she loses a hair, it's your head,
Loke said. Crap! He said something about my head. You had a good run, Guy. Goodbye, cruel world. No, hold on. Did he mean Mjoln was allowed to go? My heart just might burst like a balloon if he kept poking at it like this. Yes, of course. I'm grateful for your kindness. I rose and stumbled out, almost tripping over my own feet in the process. As soon as I exited the room, I hid behind a wall and slid onto my back. Guy. Yes, you. Listen. Never do such a stupid thing again. I had enough sweat on my brows to fill a mug. As I ran my shaking hands over my face, I realized I was grinning. Time to see what Sasa and Mjoln had to say about this. What did you say? Sasa clasped her hands around mine. I tilted my head so high that I might as well be staring at the roof. As the self-proclaimed servant of the year, I explained how I talked my way into receiving the king's consent. You're a genius, Guy! Sasa leaned in and kissed me on the forehead. Crap, it was still all sweaty from before. I forgot to give it a thorough wipe. Oh, whatever. Kill me now if you must, folks. I lived a good life. Sasa picked up Mjoln by the armpits and swung her around. Did you hear that? You're going to the festival! Mjoln said nothing, but Sasa put her down. I caught her flashing a smile. It only lasted a moment, yet somewhere within, it stirred me even more than Sasa's kiss. You're coming too, right, Sasa? Mjoln asked. Sasa stroked her chin and put a cheeky smile on. Am I going to get in you two's way? Mjoln, I'll understand if you want to be alone with Guy. No. That honesty. Mjoln tugged Sasa's wrist, making the bells from her arm jingle. Please come with us, Sasa. Oh, all right, you spoiled little angel. Sasa pressed her forehead against Mjoln's. Their eyes were close enough to touch, separated only by Mjoln's veil. Mjoln could kill everyone in this temple just by brushing off her hat, yet Sasa never showed fear for the cursed sight. I wish I could steal some of her strength. She had more than enough for one person anyway. If my parents, the two people I had trusted most, had not betrayed me, maybe I could have shown Mjoln more faith. When she smiled, I wanted to hug her. Most of the time, I dared not poke her with a broom. Sasa put both hands onto her hips. Mjoln, there's something you forgot to say. Mjoln pouted and let out a whining noise, but Sasa pouted right back to tell her there was no way of getting around this one. Mjoln lowered her head. In the smallest voice, she muttered, "Thank you, Guy." Remember what I said about wanting to hug Mjoln sometimes? Really, just sometimes. I love her little chibi version. She's so cute. Oh. I paced around outside Mjoln's room, knowing the festival had already begun. Girls always took their sweet time once they were behind those doors. At this rate, by the time Sasa and Mjoln came out, the festival might be over. I considered knocking, but Sasa had told me no boys allowed, then winked at Mjoln and closed the door. Come on, Sasa. I almost lost my head begging the king for this opportunity. I heard Mjoln's voice from behind the doors. Sasa, if this keeps up, East and West Terria will be at war. Worry about that tomorrow, Sasa said. Tonight, you're going to be a star. At last Sasa opened the doors, with Mion half hiding behind her. Mion's hair glittered under the lantern lights, making me want to run a hand across her pigtail. Her cheeks had more blush than usual, too. Sasa must have shared some of her beauty secrets behind those doors. With a sly grin, Sasa came and slapped me on the shoulder. "Did you wear makeup as well, Guy? Because your face is so red right now." Those words made me blush even more. I turned and started walking to hide my face from them. "Come on, we're already late." As Sasa followed, she leaned next to my ear. "Please become Mion's knight for the evening. She deserves the time of her life." Triple dot. I turned around and saw Mion standing still outside of her room. Sasa waved at her to follow, but Mion barely shuffled an inch. "Is it really okay for me to go outside?" I wanted to grab Mion's hand and drag her out, but Sasa beat me to it, making me taste just an ounce of envy. Mion, who usually talked nonstop whenever Sasa was around, kept silent as we strode out of the temple. She walked so slow that I feared it would be sunrise by the time we reached the streets. Once we arrived on Melody Way, however, everything changed. Mion started running around so fast that Sasa almost lost grip of her hand. As Mion looked and pointed all over the place, even the other children on the streets cast her condescending glares. I held back a chuckle, realizing I had no need for concern. Well, maybe I did worry just a tad for Sasa. Mion was pulling her around so wildly that she almost tripped over her sandals. Lanterns of every color hung overhead, giving me the sensation of walking under a rainbow. The richer townfolks had dressed for the occasion, wearing diamond-studded earrings and bracelets that shimmered under the moonlight. Many of the ladies wore perfume, purging the street of its usual sweaty smell. Even the ringing bells sounded less annoying tonight. I had no grocery chores for once, so that might have helped. Seeing Mion smile made me do the same, but inside, I also sensed a brewing sadness. After tonight, Mion might never have another chance to venture outside. I tried my best to banish that thought. Mion pointed at a stall selling wind chimes. "Sasa! Sasa! What are those things?" Before Sasa could even lean in to look, Mion had already dragged her to another stand. "What about those?" "They're greeting cards," Sasa said, panting from her attempt to keep up. Suddenly, Sasa turned to me and winked. "Hey, back in a sec." Sasa let go of Mion's hand and vanished into the crowd. That's Sasa, always plotting something up her sleeves. I never asked for the time alone with Mion. Yes, I knew my heart was pounding. No need to make fun. Also, Mion looked around for Sasa. Her grin started to fade. "Please, Sasa, stop messing around and get back here already." I squeezed through the crowd and caught up to Mion. Quick, think of something nightly to say. "Aww, Guy." For the first time, Mion referred to me by my name. "Thank you, Guy," was a no count in my book. Sasa once chided Mion for never saying my name. I never thought it mattered much, but now I was fighting back to hold the stupid grin. "Guy, lots of people I don't know," Mion said. "It's okay. You know me." Mion turned in my direction. Surrounded by the crowd, she looked tiny despite having powers nobody else had. With her standing this close, I noticed she exuded a fragrance similar to Sasa's. It must have been Sasa's handiwork. Mion looked my way, but thanks to her veil, I struggled to tell what expression she had on. I wish the cursed sight could go bother someone else for a day, then I could take off Mion's hat and look into her eyes. Mion's head gave a sudden jolt. Before I even had time to be confused, blood trickled from Mion's forehead and dripped onto her chin. I looked around and spotted a few teenagers with rocks in their hands. That's the girl with the cursed sight, one of them said. I can't believe the king let you out, another said. You're not welcome outside, freak. Another rock came hurtling in Mion's direction. I snatched the stone in mid-flight and squeezed it until my palm bled. If these scums wanted to ruin Mion's night, I would gladly wreck theirs in return. I took aim at the teenagers, but just as I was about to throw the rock, Sasa appeared and seized me by the wrist. Let's get out of here, Sasa said, and dashed toward the temple. I grabbed Mion's hand before trailing after her. My oversized shoes kept wanting to slip out, but I tried my best to ignore the discomfort. Those teenagers never had the guts to trace us, and we returned to the temple in one piece. Once we reached Mion's room, I closed the doors while Sasa wiped the blood off of Mion's face. I'm fine. Mion tried to brush Sasa's hand away. Shut your eyes, Sasa said, using her grown-up voice to let us know she was in no mood for tantrums. Mion gave a nod, and Sasa moved her hat. Mion squeezed her eyes shut as if shampoo had just been poured into them. Judging from the way her body shook, she seemed to be more terrified of her own powers than Sasa. At least others could run away, but Mion had nowhere to hide from herself. Luke said if Mion had lost a hair, I would pay the price. And now she has a gash on her forehead. No hair loss though, right? Oh, Guy, you had a good run. Sasa's head could well end up on a platter next to mine. Yet she cared only for treating Mion's wounds. Sometimes I resented her for that. Her kindness exposed me as the jerk that I was. She had to ask me to be Mion's knight. A blight, more like. I'm never going outside again, Mion said. Those words made me turn around and see that she had her hat back on. Sasa stroked Mion's back, and she continued to shake. Never, ever again. I hate everything and everyone. Sasa shook her head at me. That looked like a signal for me to get out of there, so I did as I was told. After shutting the doors behind me, I inhaled a shaky breath. Was Mion saying my efforts were meaningless? Destructive, even? She should try feeling half the horror I sensed when I begged Loke. I had swallowed my fear for her sake. That should have earned me a medal, not an outcome like this. Mion's sobs sounded from behind the door. This rage stirring with me proved that I had done it all for my personal gain. If I had impressed Mion, she might have granted me special treatment. That must have been my real aim all along. Time to wake up, guys. Stash those heroic fantasies of yours in the cupboard and never let them see light again. I feel really intense. I really want to know what's happening next in terms of will he lose his head and whatnot, or like East and West Terrier going to war. Remember in one of the earlier videos, there was that guy, like a drunkard, having a premonition of the two going to war? It's one of those things where it's like, even though it was such a small detail, it was actually foreshadowing of sorts. The next day, I skipped breakfast and nibbled on half an apple for lunch. Hard to have an appetite when I knew my death sentence was on the way. Since my arrival at the temple, it was only a matter of time before this day came. I regretted letting Sasa brew hope into my heart. Please at least let her head stay between her shoulders. The moon now hung under the starry sky, yet I heard no news of my beheading. Loke must have surely have known about Mion's injury by now. So why? As I sank deep into thought, a hand clasped my shoulder, causing me to almost leap through the temple roof. I spun around to find Sasa standing before me. The beads of sweat on her forehead told me she had just finished performing. Be sure to go and thank Mion, Sasa said, ruffling my hair. Did she want me to say my last words to Mion? Not much point if you asked me. Just drive a spear through my heart and get it over with. I would end up being eaten by maggots either way. Mion spoke to the king this morning. Sasa rested her hand onto my shoulder. She told him she had the time of her life at the festival. I sensed joy and sadness fighting within for my attention. Tears welled before I chose either one. I wanted to wipe a sleeve across my eyes, but Sasa wanted me to be Mion tonight, and a soldier would never be caught weeping. Sasa, knowing always what to do, pressed my face into her chest. Her aroma put me at ease, and I closed my eyes until the tears melted away. After settling down, I eased away from Sasa. I thought Mion said she hated everything and everyone. Sasa stretched my cheeks. People are more complex than you think, Guy. Have fun growing up. With that, she walked off toward the temple gates. I tried to follow her, but she shook her head and pointed at Mion's room. Oh, fine, the thank you thing. As I strode up to Mion's room, I half wished she had gone on a walk, as I had no idea what I should say to her. For a while, I thought our bond had strengthened, but I felt like that rock-throwing incident had unchained everything. Best not to fuss over it. I should just walk in and prepare her bed silently while she ignored my existence. That was the way our relationship started, and the way it was meant to stay. I stepped into Mion's room and found her sitting on her knees as usual. Her veil made it impossible to tell whether that forehead cut had healed. I dared not eye her for more than a second anyway. Being in the same room with her alone made it hard to breathe. As I closed the door, Mion said one word to me. Guy? Hey, I muttered, unsure of how to respond. Her tone revealed no joy or anger. I wanted to see if Mion might ask how my day was, like any normal person, but she did no such thing. Still, as I began washing the windows with my back turned to her, I found myself smiling like an idiot. From that point on, whenever I entered Mion's room, she would say my name. When I helped prepare for rituals without messing up, she would even grace me with a thank you, Guy. She did it half the time anyway. One afternoon, I walked into Mion's room with another servant, and she addressed only me. That made me feel pretty special. Perhaps only babies would compete over such thing, but my head snapped right up, so call me Baby Guy if you must. After I left the room, I closed my eyes to replay the scene of Mion calling my name and mine alone. Doing so caused me to bump into a patrolling guard. I apologized profusely in hopes that he would spare my life. The guard only shook his head, wearing a frown that showed more sympathy than rage. First, Mion softened up, and now the guards as well. Maybe Loke would blow me a kiss next. Wait, no, that would just be horrible. Guy, is it? The guard asked. Oh, addressing me by name even. At this rate, they might crown me king tomorrow. For now, though, I gave a small nod. I have news from your home in Westeria, the guard said. Since my arrival here, not once had my parents contacted me. Perhaps they had at last found the courtesy to apologize, or maybe they had collected enough gold to buy me back. Well, Mom, Dad, I would have to think about that and get back to you. Your parents have passed away, the guard told me. Oh, well. Some might find my reaction heartless, but I merely blurted out the first thought that had come to mind. We're unsure of what the cause of death is. The guard clapped his hand onto my shoulder, almost dislocating it. Sorry for your loss. Sure. No thanks, I said, and the guard trotted off as fast as he could escape this awkward situation. I resumed my cleaning duties as if I had never heard the news. As I worked alongside other servants, I even cracked a few jokes at them. Their raised brows made me realize that I had tumbled completely out of character. If they preferred, I could cry and make them hold my hand, but why must I weep over the very people who had sold away my freedom? If anything, I would call this karma. Ah, resentment. I see. Sasa's face kept surfacing in my thoughts. She was the one person I could share my troubles with, but she had no plans to visit today. Forget it. Tessa had always managed to shoulder her own burdens, determined to grow up as well. I walked into Mion's room without a care in the world. Guy? Hey, the usual exchange. Then I went to gather blankets for cleaning. Mion and I never or rarely argued as of late. Perhaps I was starting to feel comfortable around her even? Today, however, I just wanted to leave the room as fast as I could. Guy, everything okay? Mion asked. I faced her with a crooked smile, amused by why she would ask such a question. Did someone tell her about my parents? Mion pressed me until I was sitting on the carpet with her. I chuckled at her odd behavior. Maybe I was laughing at the fruitless attempt to distract her from the tears that were streaming down my face. Stupid Mion. The one time I had wanted her to ignore me, she had to be more perceptive than even Tessa. I blamed her for these memories of home that were now flashing through my mind. Thinking back when Mom and Dad said they would sell me to the temple, they shed my share of tears as well, sparing me from having to weep. Why sell me then? Rather than crying, they should have exchanged high fives as I got on that rickshaw. I could have at least have cursed them with all my heart. Mion leaned in and looped her arms around me. In this position, I was able to hide my tear-stained cheeks from her. After controlling my sobs into sniffles, I shared the news with Mion. Once I told her one thing, the rest came flooding out. I'm worried about my baby sister the most. Who will look after her now? He was worried about his little sister, like, way early on. Like, I think that came up in the first episode even. Mion released her embrace. 1 coconut, 2 apricots, cold water, 4 incense sticks. Mion still only cared about doing work at a time like this. Please have mercy and ask somebody else to take my place for tonight. Wait, today's schedule said nothing about Mion needing to perform a ritual. Go on, Mion said. I'll find out what happened to your sister. Oh my god! Mion! I'm liking that we're exploring her character a little bit more now. Like, underneath her cold exterior is this, person who actually can be warmed up to. Oh, right, okay. My face reddened from the shame of misunderstanding. But are you sure? I knew rituals took a lot out of her, but she had another one booked for tomorrow. Her power should be saved for the world's issue and not the curiosity of a mere servant. Go on, Mion said again, her waning patience evident in her tone. I scurried out to collect what she needed before she could change her mind. My heart pounded as Mion began to chant. By now, I had grown used to seeing these rituals, but the spell tonight meant something to me. Mion seemed to be taking longer than usual. Maybe I should tell her to stop. Should anything happen to her, the king would feed me to his parrot. Mion exhausted herself for me, and here I stood, fearing for my dear life like I was an animal. The floor stopped quaking at last, and Mion dropped onto all fours. With sweat spilling down her neck, she gazed up upon me. Your sister's been adopted into West Terria's temple. She's going to be okay. Tell me later. I pulled a tissue out of my pocket and used it to wipe the sweat off Mion's neck. Her cheeks reddened a little, but she let me continue nonetheless. My vision came out rather blurry. Perhaps my focus is lacking. I shook my head. You did well enough. The Westarian temple must have taken my sister in as a new servant. She'll become a slave like me, but at least I know she's alive. Thank you, Mion. That was my first tribute to Mion's thank you guy. I winked at Mion, hoping to make her smile. She threw an apricot at my face instead. Yeah, alright, I probably deserved that one. Oh my gosh, so much is happening now. Like, it's picked up significantly. Like, I really like Mion now more. Like, I know in the first episode I was like, no one's pleasant, but she's becoming a much more pleasant person. Like, even though she had that horrible incident happen to her at the festival, she still stood up for Guy because, you know, she realized, hey, this guy wanted me to experience something kind of cool. You know, and that's really awesome. And I know Guy has that resentment toward his parents, which is why he's not mourning them. But I know he's worried about his sister, as we discussed earlier a little bit. That was already brought up in a previous video as well. But again, it's good to know that she's going to be okay at the Temple of Westeria. And apparently East and Westeria are going to be going to war as well. Like, oh my gosh. This game's getting really good. It's really exploring some complex emotions and topics that not other games get the chance to explore, take the chance to explore. Like, I'm really happy with how this game's unfolding so far. But alrighty, everybody, I'd love to hear your comments below as to what you think's gonna happen. Why do you think East and Westeria are gonna go to war? And, like, what else do you think's gonna happen in this game? Like, what other plot points have we seen that I'm just missing at this point? Where do you think Mion's from? Because apparently she's an outsider as well. That was uncovered in this game as well, or at least in this video. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below, definitely. And until next time, you all have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!